introduce our guests here. Again, you guys probably know these people, work with them in some capacity, have worked with them in some capacity. But first on our left here is Mr. Tim Cornwell. And Tim Cornwell is one of the founders of Bellwether Real Estate and has a real estate team at Bellwether. And currently, you guys are around, going to be at 10 agents?
We have about 8 right now.
8 agents,
yeah.
Some new people joining.
Yeah, we've got a couple new starting in January.
Okay. And so it's my understanding you guys have one full-time admin.
Correct.
And then, so one full-time support staff, and you guys use a transaction management company.
We do.
And we'll dive more into what that means
Okay.
and the different structures of that. In 2019, Tim's team did 72 units, so that's awesome. It's badass. 29 in volume, 29 million in volume, not $29 in volume. In case you guys are wondering. Yeah. So that's pretty awesome. So thanks for being here. Is there anything you'd like to tell us about you before we get started?
You said it all. Let's get started. Let's get to the good stuff.
Awesome. Let's do it. So next we have Brandon Nelson. And he owns Brandon Nelson Partners, and I actually started out in the business working with Brandon, so I've known him since I started, since I knew nothing. And so awesome guy, both are awesome guys, but he has a brokerage called Brandon Nelson Partners. His whole team's right here. And currently 6 agents, including Brandon, and 2 admin staff who are here today, and 155 units this year. 160. Wait, don't count the pendings that aren't closed yet, right?
Closed in 2019.
$71 million in volume.
74 cents.
So smaller brokerage, but no lack of power. Let's just say that.
Thank you.
Cool. Jen Lampe, do you guys know Jen Lampe? Yeah, you do. So Jen Lampe is our team leader at Keller Williams. She's the CEO. So she runs day-to-day operations of 3 different market centers. So 280 agents, 9 leadership personnel that she works with, and then there's obviously admin staff. So these numbers that I'm going to tell you, they're supported by admin staff from each team that's involved in Keller Williams as well as the leadership. But so each one of these people has a huge world. Jen has this year
through November.
Through November?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're final tallying right now.
So we have 3 market centers, which is Bellingham, Kidderby-Bellingham, Kidderby-Skagit, and Kidderby-Whitby. Combined unit count is 2284 units and 813 million in volume. So I want to just give this spectrum here. We've got, again, each person has their merit, right? And Jen's running a brokerage with multiple market centers. Tim's running a large team within a big brokerage here locally. Brandon's running a mid-sized brokerage here in Bellingham. So everybody's got their merit. I just wanted to make sure that we all know that each one of these people shows us a path, right? There's a path to get to where you want. So without further ado, Tim, I want to jump into structure. How's your team structured?
All of the agents on our team are full-time agents. They can buy or sell. So they can list a property, they can work with buyers. They're running their own business, essentially. So I don't have specialists. I don't have buyer specialists or listing specialists or ISAs or appointment setters. They're all running their own business. So that's how they're set up. That's the structure. And then we have one admin person that's supporting myself and the team. And then we have a transaction coordination company third party that we use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so when you first started out, because you're still selling homes, but not as much because you're more in a management role, right? Yeah. When you started out, what was that moment that hit you right between the eyes? It was like, I need to hire some coverage.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about the genesis of the team model, and that was Robert Kiyosaki, cash flow quadrant, and this idea of being in quadrant 4 where you have multiple streams of income, you have multiple businesses, and residual, passive. All those things really resonated with me. And when I started in 2012, I worked with Tracy at Windermere, and it was awesome to get into business. And wow, you can make a lot of money in a short period of time. But eventually it got to the point where, okay, if I'm going to get paid, I got to close a deal. I close a deal, I get paid. I close a deal, I get paid. There's no way, I couldn't figure out a way to multiply that within myself. Yeah, I can hire an assistant, which I did for myself. But at what point in time can I scale? And with the Kiyosaki model, that was what appealed to me. So I thought, who else is doing this? And simultaneously, I'd been watching Ben Kinney, even before I was a realtor. And look what Ben's done. This is amazing what this guy's been able to leverage and create. And how do I model that? How do I learn as much as I can from what he's doing? And so I started researching him. I went to Tim Heil, who's a guy back in the Midwest who has a team. I went to one of his conferences and just trying to learn as much as I can about how to scale and run a business like that. So that was the genesis of what I wanted to create. And so I just started thinking about it and talking about it. And actually my very first team agent was Travis Fox. And Travis was working a job, and he was a client of mine. He was an investor client, buying flips with him and his dad were buying investment properties. And one day he called me up and he said, hey, I want to quit my job and I want to be the first agent on your team. And I'm like, well, I don't even know how to run a team. I don't know. I mean, I'm just talking about it. I'm just thinking about it. But that's the magic of having an idea and having the courage to I'm open to that possibility happening. And I've seen that happen so many times in my life, is just having this idea, give it permission to live in my head enough to actually say it out loud, maybe to myself and to somebody else, and then to watch the magic of that just start to unfold in front of me. That's what's really fun.
It manifests.
It manifests, yeah. So from there, it's just been trial and error ever since then, trying to learn as much as I can from everybody else. And growth in the process. I'm really good at making lots of mistakes and then hopefully learning from those mistakes.
So let's take a step back to that moment of I need help, I need leverage. I can't do this unless I have leverage, because there's a lot of us in this room that either have an assistant or are looking to hire an assistant or looking to scale or grow in some respect. What was that moment when you're like, your spouse is like, I don't even know who you are anymore, what's going on? No, but seriously, that was, so what was that moment like?
I'm a voracious learner, just like most people in this room, reading books, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos. So probably somebody along the way said, figure out what you're worth. Take your gross income or net income, or divided by how many hours you're working, and what is your dollar per hour. So if your dollar per hour is $100 an hour, are you doing $100 an hour work, or are you doing $15 an hour work that you can hire someone else to do? So the light turned on, and I need to figure out how to hire my first assistant and allow someone else to take on the lower wage type of activities. So that was what it was for me. It was like, I'm not being efficient. That kind of stuff drives me crazy. And so it wasn't really it wasn't like you're working so many hours, it's ruining, my life's getting ruined. I just knew I wasn't being efficient, and that was frustrating. I couldn't be the best at what I wanted to be and do well to provide, I couldn't be fully present with my clients and doing the things that only I can do, so I needed help doing the other things that someone else could do instead. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Jen, what about you?
What part?
And so, Jen, do you want to explain a little bit more about your role as CEO and team leader of Keller Williams?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, we have 3 locations: KW Bellingham, KW Skagit in Mount Vernon, and KW Oak Harbor, or Whidbey in Oak Harbor. And so my job as the CEO and team leader is to drive growth in the business. And so that may be bringing in new agents, that's going to be ensuring that our agents are productive, that they have the resources that they need to be successful. And I also directly coach the top 20%, not on a day-to-day basis, but on a regular basis. They have access to me for individual coaching. And I'm the face of the office. I host meetings, I host trainings, and so that's the overall day-to-day look.
So from a similar perspective to what Tim's talking about, what does your job look like with leverage and without leverage? Managing 3 brokerages.
Yeah, there is no way to help 280 agents succeed without help. So finding that in a cost-effective strategy, the same way anybody does it, growing from an individual agent into a team, we've got to take those same ideas to the brokerage level. what makes sense, how do we grow and scale little by little and not overspend, and how do we ensure that our profit margins are where they need to be so that we stay in business and that we can continue to support our agents. So that's a really important aspect that we have to always be aware of. And using leverage, it's so innate to a business. I think we all see it when it's all said and done with larger businesses, but when you're going from small to large, that's where you really feel the hurt of it, and when you're missing it and you don't understand how to get there. When it's big and thriving, that it's already functioning, you're already there, and you're trying to take those next steps. And we'll grow too fast, and then we have to change our systems and change our strategies so we can better support. And the leverage that we had set up, especially across 3 offices and the different changing needs for each of those offices, all of a sudden it breaks, we've got to rebuild it. So it's very entrepreneurial as it grows.
It's interesting, yeah, because what you're saying is that leverage can be anywhere from one person. So like looking at someone with a huge business or a huge network of management they need to take care of, you're basically saying it just comes down to taking the step into that and making sure that you're constantly adjusting that and being really conscious of the bottom line, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Brandon, tell me a little bit more about your start, your between the eyes moment of hiring leverage and how you grew your business.
Yeah, so I got into the business in '06 and then moonlighted as a home inspector and a realtor for that first year, and then was a solo realtor from '07 through 2013. And busy but capped, hit a ceiling, it just never did go beyond that.
What did you cap at?
A couple $100,000 a year, GCI kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just could never figure out how to move past that. And then Kate Pulselli was someone we knew, our family knew, and I think it was in 2013 I hired Kate to be an assistant. And in the 6 months or so that Kate worked for me before her life changed a little bit, she moved on back to her family, it just completely opened my mind, just blew my mind how much more enjoyable, productive. I almost doubled my income for that calendar year, and it was, the light was on, right? And never was I going to go back. Then I tried to hire someone to replace her, and she lasted about 2 days, and I fired her. And then I tried to hire another person, and she lasted 3 or 4 days, and I fired her. And I'm like, shit. Like there was,
To clarify, to take some of the items off your plate. So you're talking about leveraging and grow. Is that what you're saying? So to have someone take over those kind of day-to-day, minutia, details, so you can grow within the company. Is that right?
and I want to, like the word scale, I mean, I respect it. I respect what Ben's done. I respect what Tim's trying to do stuff. That's not what I'm trying to do. I don't care about scaling. I don't care about, I got to keep growing. It's just not me. It's not me. We're not hiring. We're think of us like a team of Navy SEALs. The SEAL teams don't go from 5 to 7 to 10 to 40. They're 5 people. And they like that number. It's a comfortable number. And on December 31st, 2022, I will be financially free. At that point, work will be optional for me. Then I can get entrepreneurial. Then I can take risks. Then I can try something that scales. I do not have any intention of scaling my firm or anything else. I'm working with a tribe of just very, very capable, high power, very well paid, high income people. I like to walk into that group every day, and that's my reality. So I want to just clarify that. I'm not trying to grow this big thing. And to me, the holy grail is going from 1 yourself to 2. And that's 99%. The Ben Kinneys of the world, there's a handful of them. And I love Ben, and I still study Ben all the time. If he's on a podcast, man, I'm one of the first people to listen to. But the trick and the reason you're here, most of you, is how do I go from myself to 1 more, and then have my mind blown, and then decide, do I want to go to 2, do I want to go to 4, do I want to go to 6? Okay, keep in mind, the more you grow, your profit margin goes down, right? The big firms, 2-3%. 2 to 3% profit margin for the big box firms. Is that what you want to own? I run at 30%. I like it. It's 30%. Oh my God, you're 70% of your income you're giving up? No, I'm doing 75 million, giving up 70%. It's different. So, and real estate, plug in a different business, plug in landscape care, plug in home services, I don't care. learning how to hire and getting over the fear of investing in some help is the holy grail of business, and it's something everybody in here should experiment. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So okay, so you're making, first of all, I think Jen wants to respond to that. No, you sure?
Oh, yeah, no,
Bottles are being thrown.
yeah, that was for me, thank you. I can tell you our profit margin is definitely a lot higher than that. I cannot disclose what our profit margin is, but we're doing a little better than that.
That's but you're not,
we have a totally.
you're not a big
different
box real estate firm.
Actually, I would counter that. We're the #1 firm in the world.
The Ben Kinney team?
So I oversee Keller Williams Western Realty. And just to clarify, I think there's a lot of clarity that needs to occur with that in general. Ben Kinney is my top agent in that office. He grew his team from being a single agent into the team that it is today of almost 30 agents locally here in Bellingham. He also has 30 locations across the US and Canada in other Keller Williams locations, etc. He now owns the Keller Williams franchise here. So he is my business partner in running the firm. He's what we call our operating principal. He also runs his business inside of it. So he's actually more like his model here, where he operates his team inside and owns it. So I run the brokerage on behalf of that. As the owner, he tells me how he would like to see it executed, and then I go make it happen.
So let's take it back to, I think one thing, that's all amazing information.
Let me interrupt you 1 second.
Yeah.
If you don't fully comprehend the opportunity that exists from having a Ben Kinney in your neighborhood, I mean, I haven't worked for Keller Williams for 5 years. I'll never go back to Keller Williams. Who cares? Ben Kinney is a freaking genius. He's a business genius. And if you do nothing else except listen to the interviews he does he still teach Recruit Select?
We have a new version of it, and yes, he teaches it once a year.
Okay, so
Yeah.
after I fired 2 people trying to place Kate, I went to Ben's class and took Recruit Select. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Now I get this hiring thing a little better and stuff. So I'm not trying to take anything away.
Yeah, we just have a different model, and that's.
I get it. And if you're looking and I'm talking averages and I'm talking anecdotes as well. I do not have something to say. This Gallup study says 2 to 3%. I'm just telling you, this is my business, so I
I
study
don't like
this.
being average, but we're a big box firm.
So let's jump into, I want to talk about, I think first of all, thank you for introducing the way that your
Yeah.
businesses operate.
Really different.
So you guys can see there's a lot of differences, but they all work, right? So let's talk about that moment. I like saying that hits you square between the eyes when you're like, 200 grand? There's nothing wrong with that, but he wants to grow, he wants to have more time, whatever it is that you want to accomplish. Tim, let's talk about, what was that moment? How did you decide, this is the moment I'm going to hire? What position were you looking to hire for? What were they going to do? Did you know? How did you budget?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
You know, back to the influences, right? And I was thinking about a couple of things that Tim Ferriss, the 4-hour work week. Read that book, and I thought, how is that possible? It seems impossible, but I'm open to it. The one thing, Gary Keller, Jay Papasan. How do I narrow my focus and say no to everything except the most important? And then a book called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. It's all about systems. Great organizations are built on systems, not the entrepreneur personality vector. So, and that and many other influences, right? So all these things are swirling about in my head while I'm growing as a single agent. I'm a solo agent, growing my business, and where do I want to go with this? At some point in time, I was like, I just need to hire assistants. If I'm going to at least be a little more effective and try to provide quality experience to clients, I need some help with some of these other administrative tasks.
And did you have the most amount of money in your bank account at the time?
I didn't really care. I probably did. It didn't cost, it wasn't like I have to go get a business loan so I can hire somebody. And it wasn't like I lowered my lifestyle or anything. So I had the money, but I didn't really make a financial decision. It wasn't like, I need to have this much money in savings or this much cash flow, whatever. It's, as realtors, especially if I'm talking to solo agents in the room, what's your commission going to be in October this year? Unless you have repeat investor clients or builder clients, if you're working with consumers, owner-occupied, what's your commission in October? What is it going to be in December, a year from, and so we live in this world of uncertainty. We don't know where our next deal is going to be. We're 60, 90 days out most of the time. So when I hired, it's a step of faith, right? You're like, okay, I'm just going to believe that I'm going to be more effective, that I'm going to get more deals if I have an assistant than I would on my own. So it wasn't really, like I said, it wasn't like, hey, I ran it through all of who's the guy, Dave Ramsey? I haven't ran it through his filter to make sure it checks all the boxes. But I just knew I wanted that. I wanted that experience. And if you're a solo agent, if we're talking about leverage, and I'm thinking maybe your target person is someone here that's thinking, how do I make that leap? It was more of, if I'm running my business, as opposed to, I'm just kind of, it's a hobby for me. It's just kind of a thing I'm doing at this phase of my life, and maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. That wasn't me. It was like, no, I want to be a top producing agent. I want to be one of the best. How do I figure this out? How do I break the code, crack the code on doing what I saw other very successful agents doing out there? How do I do what Rand is doing? How do I do what Chuck Miller is doing? How do I do what Don Duran, LinkedIn, other top agents that are out there that are high producers? How could I be one of those? And so then it was just that drive to go after that, and then what would it take to get there? And for me, it was just like, hey, I need to hire an assistant. I don't know that there was a magic moment where everything was perfect. It was just like, I can't be doing. Oh, I know what I was going to say. As a solo agent, you do everything. You do freaking everything. Like just putting a list. Sorry. Just putting a listing and inputting a listing into MLS by yourself. Think of all the steps it takes to do that. For those of you that are still doing that on your own, I think it sucks. That sucks, unless you love it. But, I don't mind doing it, but it's not the best use of my time. So it was those kind of things like, oh my gosh, I got 5 new listings that I input into the MLS. When am I going to do that? How am I going to line up all these photographers and do all the staging and do all the prep and So it was that sense of overwhelm, a little bit, I guess.
So are you the guy that it starts out at 1.7 and drops to 179 because you put the number in wrong? Holy crap, that's a huge price reduction. Yeah.
I never did do that.
Yeah. So very cool. So it wasn't as much of an analysis. It was more so a very simple setting a goal and letting that manifest. That seems to be kind of your theme. Is like, I know what I want. I know what I want to happen. There is the option that it could fail, but I need this in the business and I want to be there. And when you put all that mind power towards that, it happens.
Right.
Yeah. Brandon, how would you respond to that?
What was it? I'm sorry, what was it?
What did you
just moment? So the moment when, because when we were working together, Kristen,
Yep.
Keller Williams,
Yep.
Kristen was your assistant.
Yep.
And then Kate, what is that? What is that moment like? How did you meet Kate? What was the moment like before? Because I remember we had this conversation. I didn't really understand it.
Complete overwhelm. And if you're wired statistically, if you're wired to be a successful agent, you're wired the opposite of what 80% of our business requires us to do. What I call arts and crafts. Sitting at a desk, inputting stuff, making flyers. You know what I'm saying? That's a totally different profile type.
Yeah.
And if you no matter what career you're in, Marcus Buckingham wrote a great book called, long before The One Thing came out, there was a book called The One Thing You Need to Know by Marcus Buckingham. And it was about the difference between management, leadership, and sustained individual success. And the one thing you need to know that he arrived at the last chapter was, find out what you don't like doing and stop doing it. And let me plug also another thing, that if you're serious about optimizing your performance in any area of life or in business, you should take the Clifton Strengths Finder test. One of the greatest $50 spends I have ever made, because it basically, you go through these questions, it spits out this report, and it gives you permission for everything you think is wrong with you. That's not what's wrong with you, it's shit you shouldn't be wasting your time on, right?
Yep.
And so as I was just like, God, I want to be face to face with somebody out in the field, instead I'm doing arts and crafts. And it just got to the point, like I said, I was as busy as I could be, right? I was doing as much business as anybody at my firm. I couldn't do more. And Kate was looking for a job. Kate was my first hire before I went to Kate over here, Kristen, or any of that, or you came along. And so, and Kate comes in and she's just like, oh, this is my world. This is what I'm wired for, right? So she starts doing it, and I start seeing my income go way up, okay? And then she left, right? 2 fires, recruit select. I said, oh man, I want more of this stuff. I went to Keller Williams. I hired Kristen, hired Solveig, hired you. And again, just boom, boom, boom. Every step, income going up. I'm taking more time off. My life is better. Everything else. And then we decided to branch off and start our own thing. You know, met Grace. Grace has been with us since the beginning, right? And now Grace is our CEO. And then we had the pleasure of hiring back Kate after, how many years away?
She took you back.
6 years away, exactly, right? Exactly. So now Kate and Grace are our admin. And, but yeah, does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. I think what I'm trying, there's this like you guys said, it's not necessarily the 5 to 10 if that's what you want to do. It's the 1 to 2. The 1 to 2 is like, you're like leaping there, and I don't want to dive too much into my experience with Chris, but just very briefly, there's a lot of fear and uncertainty because I'm just trying to pay my bills. When I first started, I was just trying to pay my bills. When I went out on my own, same type of thing.
Yep.
But it was more so, this is the right person. I just have to go somewhere else. I have to figure it out. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. And here's a formula too that I want to share. Just wrote. Okay. Yep. If you've been struggling to figure out how do I go from 1 to 2? How do I go from 1 to 2? Think of it this way. In this town, you can hire a pretty good talent for $16 an hour. Pretty good. So take 20 hours a week, 16, that's $320 a week, times 4, so what do you have? $1,200, $1,300 a month. Commit for 3 months. So for $4,000, you're running a lifestyle changing experiment that could totally explode your life and your potential. And if it doesn't work, you're out $4,000. And what you'll find is, oh my God, I'm making so much more money.
It is the game changer.
It's the game changer.
So we've got 280 agents, and we've got about 30 teams across all 3 locations. That would include partnerships. The game changer for those businesses breaking through whatever ceiling they're at. It doesn't matter if it's 2 deals a month or if it's 50 deals a year, whatever it is. That ceiling of achievement is consistent, and the thing that breaks you through it is actually 2 things combined, is what I find. But the number one thing is hiring an administrative person. So you can take we call it the 80-20 rule. Who's heard of the 80-20 rule? Raise your hand. Some interaction here. Come on. Okay. All right. Same. Sweet. So the 80-20 rule. So the 20% of the things that you're doing are actually contributing to 80% of your income. So what are those 20% items, and what are those items that you actually like doing that are probably not arts and crafts? Those don't usually contribute to your income actually at the end of the day. So what can you get off of your plate and get rid of it and hide that? What is that?
I love spreadsheets, but they make me off my plate.
Yeah. So you get your admin, you get them all that shit off of your plate that is not contributing to your bottom line. Here's the second piece though. Often it's our own habits that get in the way of us utilizing that person to their fullest capabilities and the business's strengths. So coaching, that's the second piece. That is a 1-2 punch. The combination of coaching and an administrative person is life-changing, business-changing. It is a game changer.
Yeah. Tim, what about you? How about coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. I did those simultaneously.
Yeah.
I mean, it was right at the same time. Hey, let's spend a lot of money on an assistant, and let's spend money on coaching at the same time. So, and I've had several coaches over the years, and I've always drawn different types of value from different coaches that I've had. And I would always encourage people to consider that. That's it.
And again, going from 1 to 2 completely cracks the ceiling of going from 2 to N. And N is Ben Kinney or whatever you want to be. You get from 1 to 2, the whole world changes and opens up. You're like, oh, hire number 3, that's easy.
What was your first experience with that? Tell us a little more about like let's say day 1 is before day 2. Like there's a ramp up period too, right? So tell me about that ramp up period. I mean, Kate wasn't just plugged in perfectly to Brandon's world at that point.
No,
arts and crafts
Kate.
side.
I mean, Kate obviously Kate took me from, 200 or 400 or whatever it was. And then again, opened my mind. Then I went to keto, right? Then I hired Kristen, full time. And I hated working with buyers because now I'm making more money. And I'm like, these buyers take all my time. What do they say? The average buyer client takes 8 times what a listing takes, right? So we hired Solvay. And the next buyer that called, which was probably 30 minutes later, I said, I'm gonna put you on the phone with Solvay. Because Ben had said something that resonated, and it was, every realtor here thinks, oh, but my clients want me. My client wants me, right? We all say that. That's the myth of real estate. And Ben said something that completely eradicated that thought from my head. He said, if everything's going right, the clients don't care who's helping them. If things go wrong, yes, they want to talk to you. But if it's going right, they'll be happy. And I thought, all right, I'm going to test that theory. It's true. It's as true as the freaking nose in your face. And so, how do you do that? You hire really good people who do things right. Solvay just knocked it out of the park right from the beginning, right? She was doing great work, and then our third and fourth hire, and our fifth and sixth and seventh.
You just glossed over how awesome I was doing.
It's true. Let's talk about that. Okay, that's a very good point. That's a very good point.
No, this is actually really,
This is important. This is important. Because if you're going to get into this game, you got to know how to fire too. You got to know how to fire. And I'm saying, buddy, I love you. We weren't ready. I didn't have the volume to keep 2 buyers agents busy, right? And Solvay had started a minute before we hired Leo and was already rolling with clients. And now I'm trying to find stuff for them to both do that I was making stuff up. I was sending you to the county.
Yeah.
I was sending you to a room to Mojo Golf and stuff. And those were not part of my business model and stuff. So after 2 weeks or whatever it was, I said, Leo, I love you, buddy. We're not ready. You're fired. Yeah. And you said, all right, I'll go upstairs and work for Ben. And look what it's done for you. Yeah. So that's the other thing too. I don't want to ever have to fire anybody. Yeah. Get over yourself. Get over yourself. It's part of their journey. Yeah. You know what? The women that I hired and fired, they're doing great. They're doing better than they ever were before they met me, doing their own things, So what about payroll? Yeah, you look up a bookkeeper. I mean, guys, this is simple freaking stuff, and it will change your life.
Yep.
And I'm talking about the economy and the world of business going backwards. You wait another 5 years. If you don't know how to put a business together, if your kids don't know how to put a business together or be self-employed or hired, they're fucked. You come back to me in 10 years and say, oh my God.
So we're talking about this it's like radical honesty where you care so, and this is, you care so much about the other person's well-being, and you know that it's not a good fit for you. So you have that conversation with them, not to be like, you did all this stuff wrong, it's just not a good fit. And it's all about how you approach that. So that's talking about firing. Let's talk about hiring. How do you guys pick people? How do you guys figure out the role you need? Is it just constantly taking inventory of, holy shit, I'm really bad at this. Like, I know I did that, and I was like, 80% of what I'm doing, I'm really bad at, like terrible. It's 20%, like, okay. Tim, Jen, you want to talk a little bit about like, what do you look for with like folks that are joining the brokerage from an admin perspective, agent perspective?
I would actually say more what I coach my agents to do when they're looking for talent, actually. Yeah. So whether that be their first administrative hire, their second administrative hire, a great agent, it's like dating. You've got to get to know this person and get to know them really well. And usually that'll include a personality assessment. We have one internally. I would encourage the DISC if you don't have one internally as a great one. It's quick and easy, but it gives you a deep dive into their personality first and foremost. Interview the heck out of them. Oh, not just you, but with multiple people in your brokerage. If you don't have a team yet, with other people you trust, get to know them, go on date after date after date. Then, once you kind of like this person, you're like, that's a great fit. Find somebody to talk you out of the person and defend that hire to somebody else. Because we usually have a need. There's a hole to fill, we've got some pain, we want to take away that pain. And so you are ready to say, this person is my solution. And you kind of fall in love with your recruit and you're like, this is it, this is it. And so have somebody try to talk you out of them and see if you can truly defend them. And then if they pass that test, then I would say offer them the position And then set them up on a 30, 60, and 90-day plan. And when you do that, ultimately when you've got your letter, your offer letter, or whatever, your hiring date, you're engaged. You are not married. You're engaged, and then by the time they complete that 90-day plan that you have outlined for them, now you're married. And then you can begin the long-term relationship. But that 30, 60, and 90-day plan is really integral in terms of setting expectations for both of you, ensuring that there are clear benchmarks for what is success in this role, what is not success in this role, and gives you 3 different opportunities to part ways. And it's clearly outlined up front.
Love that. So very systematic. And
extremely.
Tim, I have a question. Have you ever had someone come into your life when you're not ready to hire, and they're like, you're just like, oh my God, I have to find something for this person.
Yeah.
What do you do in those moments when you don't have a need yet, but you have such an amazing quality person that's coming into your life?
First of all, these guys, this stuff, they're just dropping some nuggets of knowledge. I mean, I feel like I'm buried in gold nuggets right now with this stuff. That's awesome.
Where's the aura right
Yeah,
here?
it's really good. Yeah, I'm always on the search for talent. Always, and then there's the magic moment where you do cross paths with someone that you just click with, right? And you're like, wow, and what would it look like if we could ever work together? Type of a thing goes through my mind, and a lot of times I'll just say it. I mean, you're the kind of person I love to work with someday. I'll just blurt it out. Why not? Why not put it out there and see where it goes? And so anyway, I have like an ongoing list of just people I'd like to explore the possibility of working with them, and eventually I'll like, hey, let's get to know each other better. Let's go have coffee. Let's have lunch or whatever. Or I'll have an opportunity. Let's say 6 months. Now there's this opportunity, and I'll call them and just say, hey, would you be open to talking about this? Yeah. What was I going to say about the hiring thing? You know what? A couple things I want to touch on that these guys were talking on. One is I've learned that it's an energy game. And my energy, I've really become keenly aware of how much I value it. And someone walks in that door and they either suck the life out of me or they're making a contribution. Okay? And so I start to watch for that. And for me, are they a victim mindset where everything bad is happening to them, or are they a person that's taken responsibility for whatever's happening to them in their life, and they're coming up with some workables? Like, hey, this is happening, it's bad, but you know what, I'm gonna own it, I'm gonna figure it out, and that's the kind of people I wanna be around. So that's like my first litmus test, when she was talking about the dating thing, is what's the energy I get? And I really can pick that up pretty quickly, within at least 2 to 3 minutes.
What are some indicators, what are some things, like, do you throw out a question that is kind of like just a fishing question that's like, hey, like, how would you react? Like, is there some indicator that you have, or do you just have signals when you talk to people?
Eye contact.
Yeah.
What's your body language, your energy you're putting out? Or do you have a sense of humor?
Yeah.
Is there any kind of like jovialness to your voice, or is it just like monotone? And I have long lists of questions that I go through with people where I try to dig deep and to try to get below the layer, right? And what's interesting is the more I do it, whether I'm onboarding new agents or hiring staff, the more I do it, the more I realize I don't know I have no clue how to predict someone's behavior.
Totally.
I mean, I do the best I can, and I try to use systems and processes and procedures and DISC profiles and values assessments and interviews and references and getting to know them. But at the end of the day, you don't really know until they show up and they deal with what we deal with. People underestimate the world we live in.
Yeah.
And only we can appreciate what we deal with out there, the level, the breadth that's demanded from every one of us in this room, from people skills, marriage counseling, knowing construction, zoning, knowing how do you deal with healthcare as a self-employed person. I mean, you think of the breadth of knowledge that you have to have in this business, and the people that are buying and selling houses through us, they have no clue what is being demanded of you each and every day to provide value in every area that you have. So when you bring somebody from the outside world into our world and you try to unpack what it is, you can't. It just takes time. And I'm learning not to cast judgment on any agent that joins our team for the first 6 months. I can't cast judgment on them if they're gonna be successful or not, because they just haven't been doing it long enough to really tell me. I can know their energy. I'll know, is this a victim or is this someone that's gonna figure it out? But I don't really know if they're gonna be successful in the first 6 months. It's just too hard to say. You know what it's like, right? Do you remember your first 6 months? Lori Joe, do you remember your first 6 months? I mean,
Redacted. No. So the next question is, so Brandon says the first key thing is getting one, like the first person to join your team that sees the vision. The second part is, now you've been doing these things. It's almost like you're shell shocked from doing these things for so long. These things you don't like to do, but you've like, I gotta just keep doing it because it's part of the getting the deal done. You know, how do you start delegating that? How do you start like releasing, relinquishing autonomy? The word autonomy. How do you start relinquishing control and empowering that person? What is that like for you?
Well, on paper, the perfect thing to do is you start small and you start with low consequence things and you see, and if they handle that, you give them something a little more, and that's great in theory. A lot of, in our business though, a lot of times it's, you know, you wake up one day and your freaking hair's on fire and you just push your whole world, if you have hair, onto this person, and you know what? It's kind of trial by fire, Leo. You know, or you realize that, wow, this person is way more capable than I ever thought, and they do this stuff that I used to do all the time way better than I ever did it, and you see if it works, and if it doesn't work, you either change or you fire them, or you send them to a class or whatever else. I mean, we're so good in this business at being reactionary and pivoting 1,000 times a day to what we need to be doing and how we need to do it. This process that you're trying to talk about here is no different. It's no different. So, you know, like I say, we're not really hiring anymore. I still get a call a month or so and meet with someone.
That's me calling you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I still take those meetings, you know, for the most part. And if, you know, if a person like one of my team really set their mind on coming to work for us, I'm no doubt in my mind they would probably end up there ultimately if they were just that committed, you know, and they were that awesome.
Can you get more specific on, like, maybe just an example of a time that you had to delegate something big? Because we deal with these big handoffs, right? In our big pivots. Maybe just give us an example of a big handoff that you had to do. Something that you normally do that you're like, holy shit, I'm kind of scared that I have to pass this off. This person's very capable. I hired them for this. But I physically cannot do this right now.
A $1.6 million seller who's ready to go, who I've been nurturing a relationship with for a couple years, and he's ready to go. And I say, fantastic, I'm going to introduce you to Jackson. You know, he'll be right over. And we close at the end of this month. I mean, there's an example. That's a pretty big deal.
So are you saying at the beginning, getting really good at just saying, hey, look, this is how this works, like setting the expectations up front?
In the beginning, I would sit down next to Kate, and I would sit down next to her for an hour, and I'd say, this is how the matrix works. This is how listing input works. You know, these are the letters that I want to go out to this neighborhood to ask if anybody's thinking of selling. And I want you to hand address them and send them out. Let me know when it's done. I mean, you know, those sorts of things early, arts and crafts. This is the way I want my flyer to look. Oh, let's look at it together. Oh, change the headline a little bit. You know, sharpen the colors. Okay, that looks great. Can you deliver them to this flyer box for me? Because I'm going to be over here talking to this client. I mean, you know, it's that simple. I mean, I guess I've been doing it long enough now that it seems simple to me. But that's just how you start. And you could even start before that, brainstorming. What are the things that I'm doing right now that are keeping me from being face-to-face with clients? You know, write a list of those things, and that now of those, take a highlighter and say which ones make me go, oh. Highlight those. And then if you're afraid to hire somebody with actual payroll, great, call a temp agency and send someone over. I want to see if they can handle the things on this list. And wow, they can. Oh my God, let's do it. You know, and then, hey, can I hire you from the temp agency? Sure, I'll take over. You know, it's like what we teach our kids when they're little babies. Use your words. Use your words. You know, just try this stuff. And going back to Jen's thing with hiring, when I was at KW, they taught us check 30 references. check 30 references. And the disc test was like just to see what seat do you basically belong in on the bus. And it still works great. Then there was the ABA, right?
Then we have the KPA.
Okay, you got the KPA, and you got all these different layers. I don't use that stuff anymore, and I didn't use them on most of these guys, but they used them for you and for Solvay, right? Kristen and all those things, and the predictions that were made were spooky accurate. But the going 30 people deep, looking for that one who says run from this person, right? Say hire slow, fire fast. You know, but you just get into it and you realize you come out the other end of an experiment going, I'm okay. I still got money. I still got my client list. It didn't quite work out, but I'm going to try it again. And then a year from that or 2 years from now, you're like, wow, I got a business. I'm going to take off. The highlight for me was this last summer. My wife and kids and I went on a 7-day backpacking trip on the coast of Vancouver Island, off the grid, couldn't even remotely check my cell phone. When I got back on the grid, it took me 30 minutes to get completely caught up with everything. And I probably had tens of thousands of dollars more in my bank account at the time.
One of the first things and the scariest things that I did when I had to give up control, basically, that's one of the things you have to give up in this process and create some leverage in my life, was to hand over my email to my assistant and to guarantee that I would not check my email until 11 a.m. That's a scary moment. Holy shit. So that, and it's so simple, that is probably one of the very first things you should hand off. And if you cannot check your email until 11 a.m. and then you check your email, it's already sorted, the spam is deleted, half of the emails are responded to already, and then the rest of them are flagged for you to check and follow up. After you've done your one thing for the day, which is grow the business, then you can do the things that would otherwise be derailing you first thing in the morning.
Yeah, so to clarify, like just to make sure that we're hitting kind of all the points of these different types of businesses, it's grow the business or hone the current business. It doesn't matter, it's whatever your goals are, right? I want to dive into specific admin roles. So right now we're talking about an assistant, hiring one person as an assistant. We talk a little bit about transaction management, and I'm just going to throw this out there because that was my first hire, and it wasn't hiring somebody full-time, but it was a contractor that you pay per transaction. You don't pay until they close. We actually have Melissa in the room. Melissa's awesome. So transaction management is taking from a purely transactional real estate perspective, not necessarily growing the business, but just closing deals, is taking that 80% off your plate. And so paying somebody like Melissa, you know, what is it, like $400?
$375 for transactions, $475 for listings, which includes input and the transaction closing. And I'm pretty flexible, and we'll talk with you if you're looking for other services.
Cool. So she has cards. Totally plug. Because my first month without anybody helping, I did four deals in January, which was a nightmare, and I was on vacation. And then I hired a transaction manager, and I went to 7 pennies that month. So it was just one of those things where I was like, I'm worried about something I don't have to pay to the end.
So and it takes it from contract to close. You are working with clients, new clients, or nurturing your existing clients. Once you get that deal signed around, you're like, hey, Melissa, here it is. And she's killing it. She's sending the emails back and forth to escrow and title and the mortgage company, and the inspection response is going back and forth. You're not handling it. You can see it all go on in your email, but it is handled for you, which means you can dedicate your time and energy towards the things that are actually creating more income.
And for the 80% of you who are going, yeah, but my clients want me. They want me on the email. Just what you do is you set the client's expectation when you first meet them. Here's how it's going to work. When we go pending, you're going to hear from this person. Like, oh, just like you said, you know,
So there's transaction management, which I think, can we all agree that that's probably like number one? Like if you hire someone part-time to do that, that's like number
there's
one.
There's your no risk experiment.
And I would say it's
TCs are a great opportunity to bridge that gap between figuring out whether you're ready for an actual assistant or whether you just want to get these contingencies and deadlines off your plate. You know, and then deciding, okay, I'm still left with a bunch of stuff I don't want to be doing or should be doing. And then you can let it go and hire somebody to come in and do that full time.
And she's paid out of escrow. So that means you're not on the hook for payroll. You don't have to set all that stuff up. You can get to that later.
You're also on the hook for transactions that don't close.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great benefit to you. It's not as great for the TC, but that's how
So
the
wait,
business
you're
is
saying
structured.
pay your admin out of escrow? I love that.
She's like, no.
We have a contract service. Actually, we do have people on teams within Keller Williams who are paid out of escrow. They might be paid a very small base salary or hourly rate, and then the bulk of their income is paid out of escrow. So they are incentivized to help get this transaction closed. And so that is an employee, so to speak.
And what I really like about that model is that now that person is like, what are you doing in the office? Get your ass out of here. Go get in front of somebody. They're like cracking the whip. Right, Chris?
Yep.
Yeah. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Bring me contracts.
Yeah.
So what do we have in-house right now? What do we have out of house? And this is the last question I want to go over, then we'll open it up to everybody. What are the admin roles, the leverage roles that you have, and maybe we can start with Tim, that you have in-house and then out-of-house, and why?
Well, before I answer that question, let me just say a little exercise you could do that might be helpful for you. I paid a coach, many coaches. Here's an exercise they gave me. Take a blank sheet of paper, draw a line down the middle. On the left side, things I don't love to do in my day-to-day. And on the right-hand side, things I love to do. And you just do it. You do a brain dump, put that list down there, go with your heart. What do I love to do? What do I not love to do? And then you look at the stuff you don't love to do, and you figure out, does this even need to be done? Should I just stop doing it altogether? Could I delegate this to somebody else, another agent or somebody else, or do I hire it out? Do I hire someone to do this work? And so anyway, a little exercise. The answer to your question is we use a transaction coordination company similar to this lovely lady over here. We use Lindsay Bavaro, her company called Real Time Savers. So she has a whole crew of TCs that take it from contract to close for us. And then we have an assistant that kind of basically does whatever we need to have done for our team. Most of our agents are pretty new. They're not doing a lot of transactions, so they really need to learn the steps along the way. We don't have the kind of volume per agent like this fine gentleman here does.
Oh, thanks, Tim.
Yeah. Well, you too. You probably you didn't give us your numbers.
It's not about me.
They're available on the MLS.
Yeah. So with us, we're not heavy on the admin side. We've done some different things with other virtual people, virtual newsletter people.
What does that mean, virtual?
They're not an employee. They're just they might be in the Philippines. They could be in Seattle. They could be anywhere, and it's just an email or phone call arrangement where they're taking care of a specific task. So let's say I hate doing my newsletter every month. I want my newsletter to go out every month. I hate doing it myself. It never gets done because I have my expectations are too high, or it takes too much time, and I never get started. I procrastinate. So if I want to get that done, I better outsource that to somebody else. So there's 1,000,001 newsletter people out there that do that.
Yeah.
So you're talking about copyright. So and as far as marketing goes, that's also done by your admin?
We have different marketing opportunities online with third parties.
Okay, so just
yeah.
a contractor, an external contractor.
Yeah. That is something on my radar though. A dream position would be to bring somebody in on the team that has a marketing mind and does all the things to get the most out of social media and other mechanisms that the voodoo that happens online, remarketing and those cool things, right?
Yeah.
Right now we're doing it all through third parties.
Okay.
Yeah, that are goosing things online for us, and then we get people to respond and we get leads. So.
Okay. And Jen?
I mean, which team do you want to talk about?
I mean, maybe just
Yeah.
think of an example in your head of like how the brokerage is functioning, who's doing the marketing for the brokerage, who's doing the marketing for a specific team you can think of.
Yeah.
What are some of the different positions that, because Keller Williams is very focused on taking the agent and dissecting it.
Yeah. Well, on a brokerage level, I mean, we do have in-house marketing at this point, and so that is done by one of my administrative staff who actually sits in our Skagit office. And she also does front desk work, and she trains on different elements. So all of our leadership staff wear a lot of different hats. But I would say actually what might be more interesting to this group might be actually how the Ben Kinney team is structured, because they're our largest team, about 30 different agents in this location, and then again 30 locations across the US and Canada, and all of that is processed here. A lot of this is in-house upstairs in our office. So they have listing coordinators who specifically only manage putting a listing packet together, so that you can go out as an agent and go, talk to the clients, and then once it's signed around, then it goes back to that person, they input the listing, they get the photos scheduled, they do all that in-house.
Scheduling putting open houses on,
everything.
making pictures, everything like that.
So all of the marketing on that is done both through that listing coordinator, and then also there's a lot of leverage through the Brivity platform, which is what they use, Ben's technology company. So that combination of Brivity is used across the whole team, and there's a huge amount of leverage within a CRM like that. I'm not saying you have to use Brivity to get that, but it's something you should look at, a high-level CRM to see what else you can get off your plate. There is a pending coordinator, so everything on the transaction level, basically kind of what Melissa does, but inside the team. Yeah, so listing coordinator, pendings, and so they manage everything from contract to close. There's an entire team of VAs behind that woman, and it's pretty phenomenal what they do right there. There's a team of ISAs, or inside sales agents, and they do a variety of different styles of ISA.
Inside sales meaning they're prospecting to find more business. Setting
appointments for either from the database or for individual agents. And then right now we're hiring a client care coordinator, which is a new role that will help the team to better leverage the existing relationships and stay in relationship with their database. So that's all in-house, and that's just on an administrative side. There's teams within that team, so there's administrative people or assistants that some of those agents have earned the opportunity at the production level to hire along with the help of the team. So that's the largest scale team that we have, although yours is actually one of the more interesting structures. I was saying in terms of their titles and their roles, and so you might choose to share some of that.
Okay, so yeah, definitely. I was kind of told early on, and my thought is I don't really need a lot to live. I'm pretty frugal about how I don't need a lot of money right now, at least. So my investment was upfront into branding and upfront into the right people. Because again, I took inventory like Tim was talking about. I was just like Brandon, I'm super brutally honest about what I would fire myself over. So that's what I did. I fired myself. Chris came in basically and fired me from those things, but it was one of those things where it slowly crept in, where Chris took over transaction management. He was doing all of the things. That's his tagline, by the way, all the things. And then he got to a point where he had no more time, and he was spending too much time on doing social media, which is not what he wanted to do. And then Cooper, because he's a millennial, and he has Facebook, so he stepped in. The next step was having someone come in and take over media, right? Making sure people know that we're here. And then third step was Tiffany, who's come into our world, who's awesome, who does client care and events, because we do a lot of events and client care, which was something that I've been talking about for the newsletter. I've been talking about it forever, and I was just wasn't calling my past clients because I was lazy and I was focusing on charging forward. So she has created a system so that I just have to, once a quarter, I'm calling them and they're getting 10 other touches and giveaways and all of these things. So that's kind of the way our team's set up. But again, they're kind of interchangeable. They kind of all do a little bit of this, that, and the other, and they support each other. And so that's kind of it. So, Brandon?
Yeah. So Kate's role is a transaction coordinator. So she does what was your name again? Melissa. What Melissa does in-house for our agents exclusively. Takes everything from contract to close. We use Dropbox. We use Dropbox Paper as our task management, and then Kate has some software that you use on top of that, or in addition to that. I think testing out a few different ones, exactly. So yeah, so that was something that it was actually a meeting with Jackson 6 months ago when we were just talking about what do you need to do your job better. And he said transaction coordinator. So we put that into place, and that's been a game changer. Grace, it's very hard. Grace wears a lot of hats. So our business is about 80% repeat and referral. We put a lot of emphasis on maintaining those long relationships with our clients. I think the funniest word in real estate is closing because that's actually kind of the beginning, right, of the next transaction starts there. And so we do the client socials that we do, and the swag that we give to the gifts, the thank you cards and stuff. It's just a huge volume of merchandise and relationships and events and scheduling and branding and marketing and all stuff, and Grace manages all that, as well as the office and the office manager and all the supplies and the multiple printers and everything else. And so it's, basically we take a call, or I take a call, hey Brandon, we're ready to sell, fantastic. I send the address to Grace, and then everything I need to walk out the door is done for me, and it's hard to describe. The job description that I've given all my assistants from the beginning was, I won't try to do anything that will land you in prison or end your marriage. Everything else is on the table, and that's true. Everything else on there. Everybody's licensed. Everybody closes deals. Grace and Kate don't do obviously the same kind of volume as the full agents, but they're both closing multiple deals a year, and that's important to us as well. But yeah, that's kind of
very cool. So you guys can see that it's taking this step. The first step is, like Tim was saying, setting the goal and knowing what you need to do, and then just trusting the process and just knowing that you're capable of filling in all the gaps to keep that person, because if they provide enough leverage for you, it's worth it every time. So thank you guys for that. I want to open it up to everybody here for questions. Has anybody been sitting on a question that hasn't gotten answered yet that you are just dying to know? We've covered it all.
We're speechless.
Cool.
Brent, how did you entice Kate back?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question.
I mean, you have a great person, and is it money? Is it?
Yeah, no, that's great. We just stayed in touch over the years, and then Kate, it was always just this open invitation. Hey, when you're ready to get back into the business, because primarily she left because her young kids needed her at home, and her husband took a job out of state or traveling a lot. And so as the kids got a little older, it was, hey, if you want to come back. And to be fair, Kate came back originally as an assistant to Elena, which I encourage all of my individual agents to begin building their teams, right? And so she came back as an assistant to Elena, and with ambition to be her own realtor. And over time, and I forget the exact details, but we then offered her this new position, and she,
Conversation with Jackson.
well, it was a conversation with Jackson, but what was going on between, I mean, it was kind of hard to pull her away from Elena, and I apologize for doing that, but we offered this position to Kate to move into that role, and it was just a perfect fit for her, kind of at the time. And then Grace will move into a kind of a DB role over time. I mean, Grace and I both study the legal part of this business kind of intimately, and we like that. We love to know the minutia and the contracts and stuff. So then if I decide to go in a different entrepreneurial direction after this phase in a few years or whatever, if everything's still together, then Grace could morph into that role. So it's, yeah, but that's how it came. And now, yeah, it's having two is, we were very top heavy. We were doing $70 million a year with one admin, very top heavy. And so having some of that weight taken off Grace's plate was huge when Kate came along.
Cheers to Grace. Yeah, I made it. Do we have any other questions before we wrap up? Aldo?
So for you two, and I know you're not
Go for
a
it.
team leader of teams, but so I know you talked about you guys are very intimate, Navy SEAL,
Intimate.
and if you're not hiring and whatnot. But right now, my question is, what do you guys do for your agents to keep them happy, to keep them on your team, so you don't lose them to another team or a single agent or whatever?
Who says they're happy?
They don't care about me.
Yeah, Tim, you want to go?
Well, it's always a work in progress. I see 4 pillars on the team. There's a pillar where I'm always attracting and recruiting people to the team. There's another pillar of training. The other one is equipping. You've got to provide all of the resources available for them to be able to do their job. And the last one is retention. And so what do people value? Well, everybody values something differently. And so what our intention is to create a culture and a community that people value. And so what we've come across is that generally speaking, they value time together away from work. So we do a monthly team social, and a different member of the team is responsible. We give a budget. We say, you pick the place, you pick, here's the date, you pick the location and what we're gonna do. And so we do that every month. We do a team mastermind every 6 weeks where we go out to dinner and then we spend a half hour, an hour with the whiteboard and we say what's working well and what do we need to work on. And we'll find that one thing that we really want to work on the most and then we'll break it down and figure out some workables on how to have a breakthrough in that area. So I think it's time together away from work is something they value. We make a big deal about birthdays. Chris Boyd just had a birthday last week and he got a 6-layer multicolored cake made from scratch. And that made him feel really, I think that made him feel really special. So it's just stuff like that. It's giving people personal care and attention at the way they want it delivered. So that's
I would actually jump on that. What I see with looking at multiple different business models and different teams, the ones that are successful in retaining their agents and who are successful as a business are the ones who are in relationship with their team, who actually are having FaceTime. They're not off selling and never checking in, and they have actual relationships with their team, all the levels, whether they be active sales agents or the administrative, and it's equally important. And then they understand what is driving that person. What are their goals? What did they come to this role to achieve in their life? Where do they want to be in 5, 10, 20 years? And how can this role help them to get further in their goals? And when those two align, why would you ever leave? When your world gets bigger, when you are able to achieve your dreams within that team, you don't want to leave. And when you've had better sales success, better income, better quality of life, there's no reason to leave.
And I would even throw in the mix that it's on you as a team leader. So as you take that step and grow, that if someone has a big vision, like someone like Chris has a huge vision of what he wants his world to be like, and I'm like, holy shit, I've got to keep growing my world, because if I don't grow my world, it's going to get too small for them. Mm-hmm. And so it's about finding leaders. But if you find people that are leaders, you've got to find their roadblocks, you've got to pull them out of the way, and you've got to get the hell out of the way. That's the key, is not trying to keep them down, but trying to find a way to remove roadblocks and then get out of the way. So.
Yeah, I'll credit KW in that they had the 7 levels of agency and stuff. I love that. I love that they've got structure that you can grow in. Because I'll tell you, I've heard from multiple different big box firm owners that that business model, and this is coming directly from their mouth, that business model is about filling the brokerage with medium producers who are happy making 50, 60 grand a year, because once they cap, that owner's not making money anymore. Then they're just costing the firm money. So they don't want that. So when I heard that, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? So I want to be surrounded by people who want to go to the moon, right? I want to be the dumbest guy in the room, not the smartest guy in the room. So the thing that has worked well for my firm is from the day these guys join, I want them making money. So I would give them business. I would refer them, I would hand them clients, and they'd go out and close deals, and they would make real paychecks. I only know my numbers because Grace tracks them all and shares them with me. So last year we did 44% of our total business was generated by the firm and handed to the agents. 44%. So that's a lot. That's a fair bit. It's almost half, right? So they're making money. I want them making money, and whatever their ambition and growth strategy is, all you got to do is tell me what I can do to help facilitate it. I will never hold them back. The ultimate compliment that I received was one of my agents, and you're all welcome to try to recruit my agents, go for it. The ultimate compliment recently was one of my agents was being recruited by this firm, and she finally said, you could cut me a check for $500,000 and I would not leave BNP. Wow. And when she told me that, I was like, okay, we got something real here. Awesome. Yeah, we got something real. So I'll credit Ben one more time. On a podcast, they asked him, how do you hold your people accountable? He goes, it's easy. Hire people who don't need to be held accountable.
Yeah.
Hire people who have it built in already.
Yeah. Ben does not ask me, how are you doing today? How are your numbers? How is the business running? It's my job to tell him, here's what we've got going, here's a problem that I'm working on, and here's the solution. Here's what I'm doing. And those are the people that I surround myself with, and who I teach in our team leaders of what to do with their teams. So you don't want to hire somebody like, hey, did you follow up with that lead? that is not your person who's going to help you grow. That is going to suck time, suck energy, and suck money from your business. So when you find the right people, take a long time to hire them. Make sure you know who you're getting in business with, and be fast to fire them if they're not the right fit.
I want to say one final thing, kind of building on what all of you guys have said, to fully answer your question about the way that we built our team. It's actually modeled again, towards a lot of things that you guys all do, other teams do. But one of the things that was really important was creating enough, like so much value up front for the agent, and that's at my investment, at my cost, so that people come in and they're like, holy shit, like this is, I just have to go get a deal and just do that one part of it. So that was a big part up front, was making sure that there's so much value, and then I'm there creating that personal relationship. So yeah, first of all, this is only the second panel, but this is an awesome panel, right? Yeah. So before we finish, Coop is going to have us do a group photo here.